This scene that I've opened here is in my outbox, and it has a ship mesh in it, a dummy object, various lights to light the scene with, and a camera. If you're not familiar with how to make any of these things, look them up in the help file and it'll tell you where to find these different objects and how to create them. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to link my ship to the dummy object. And I'm going to do that so that as I rotate this dummy object around, I can see which way the ship's pointing, which helps me figure out which way it's going. If you don't link it first, it won't hurt the final animation, but sometimes it's hard to figure out which direction the dummy object's pointing in. Okay, at this point, I can see that my z-axis is set to 90 degrees, so that's where I'm going to start with at this point. I'm going to go to Auto Key for this, and I'm going to rotate this around and figure out which direction I'm going here. So this is going to be 135. Increments of 45 degrees, so I'll go to 135 and I'll create a key at frame 0. The next frame is going to be, I always have trouble with my math, so I kind of have to figure it out this way. So 135, it's going to be 180. And I create a key at frame 2. Frame 3 is going to be, I think it's if 180 plus 45, that's going to be 225, sorry. So 225, there we go. And I'll create a key at 3. The next one is going to be at, if that was 225, this would be, what, 270, I believe? 270? Yep, that's right. And I'll create a key there. The next one is going to be at 315. Looks about right. And create a key. The next frame is going to be, if that was at 315, it's going to be at 360. Again, I'm just adding increments of 45 degrees to each of these. The next one I can make, if I'm just going around it from 360, will be 405, I believe. Yep, that looks right. And I'll create a, did I move that? Yeah, I'll create a key there. There we go. The next one, frame 7, which is my last one, will be at, let's see, what do we got here? Just set that one at 90. There we go. And I'll create a key. Okay, at this point, I'm going to unlink the ship, which is important. Everything will actually rotate around the ship. So what you should be left with if you move your animation bar is that the ship moves around in the camera viewport, because watch this view. Everything is moving around the camera. You can see it in this view as well. Zoom in here a little bit. You can see that these lights and my cameras are moving around the ship. So everything's linked to the dummy except for the ship. That way you can see the lights on this side. When I rotate the ship around, the light's still going to be on this side. So that's how you want these sprites to look when they're all done. Now, there's a couple things we need to do first. We need to go to our camera and go under Modify and make sure that orthographic projection is selected. Without it, you'll get distortion or three-point perspective. That's not what we want, because we don't want ships like this. If it's going to be rendered at this size, the ship next to it at the same size is going to have the wrong perspective. So what we tend to do is just flatten them all out, and we just go with a 2-point perspective on these, and that's much, much better. Okay? All right. The next thing that we need to do is we need to get our rendering set up for these. And to do that, we go under our render options, and we want range, and we want 0, and in my case I want 7, because I started rendering at 0 and I have 8 views, so 0 to 7. And we need to pick a spot to save it in, so I'm going to say save files as, and then I'm going to put these in my folder for this class. And here we go, Sprites. And I'll just call this ship01, and I'm going to say save. I'm going to save it as a targa in this case, and I want it as a 32-bit targa, so I'm going to hit setup and make sure that 32-bit is checked. Okay? And I'm going to say OK. That way I will have my alpha channel all set up with it as well, which is probably what we're going to want. And we're going to save this out as a bunch of frames in this case. So we'll end up with targas 01 through 08 for this. I'm also going to make it 256 by 256. You can make it whatever size you want, but just make sure that it's square and make sure your pixel aspect ratio is 1. Okay? So, okay, at this point I'm just going to render it. So I've got everything set up. Again, make sure you've got that range set up. And I'll just hit render, and we'll watch it render here. It'll probably be pretty quick. Whoops. And of course, if I pick the right viewport, it'll even be better. There we go. Okay. There are my sprites. Make sure that no parts of the sprite go off the map. Also, if you don't have a background, which is probably what you want to do, you can see that the alpha channel is already built for you. So when you move these over into Photoshop, you'll already have your alpha channel set. Okay? You can also render in any transparent or opacity maps. That's fine, as long as it's translated into your alpha channel once it's rendered. And that is really all there is to setting up a sprite. So that's how